Hi, and welcome to the Badass Breastfeeding Podcast, co-hosted by Abby Fearing, the Badass Breastfeeder, and Dianne Cassidy, IBCLC.
Today's episode is brought to you by Spandice, ice and heat therapy in an adjustable supportive wrap. Heat therapy is perfect for breast ailments such as clogged ducts or mastitis. And today you can use promo code BADASS for 20% off your purchase plus free shipping. Check them out at spandice.com/badass. That is spand-ice.com/badass. And you can find the URL in the description of this podcast episode.
Hey, welcome to the Badass Breastfeeding Podcast. This is Dianne. I'm your lactation consultant.
And I'm Abby, the Badass Breastfeeder.
And we are going to talk about supplements today.
Awesome supplements.
They're a hot topic.
They are hot. It's a hot market for supplements.
So when we say supplements, that could sound like, oh, supplements like supplementing with formula, supplementing with pumped breast milk, or supplements like supplements that you take for whatever you want to take supplements for. So we could even
what are we talking about? Oh, we can talk about all of them.
We could probably talk about all of them, but
I think
But I think when we first thought about this, or when you first suggested it, I think it was more about like the stuff we take, right?
Like the herbal supplements and all that stuff that's kind of out there.
Yeah, because we touched on it for a minute in one of our other podcasts recently. And, I'm drawing a blank on which one it was. But we did touch on it for a minute. And I think it's important because there's a lot to it. And they're popular, right? I mean, they're popular.
They're really popular, yeah. And yeah, so let's talk about that. Because this is probably one of the most common questions is, oh my God, my milk supply, I'm not making enough milk. I tried, lactation tea. I've tried fenugreek. I've tried
the cookies,
I've tried all this stuff and nothing's working. What's my problem? And so let's talk about what the problem is.
Yeah, let's hash it out. So I think bottom line is I think that we really need to say first and foremost that I think everybody kind of considers supplements to be completely innocent because they grow in the ground or they're made naturally or whatever the reason. And sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're really not as innocent as we think they are or as we think they should be.
Right. And I think we can even back up farther a little bit and first start saying, is your milk supply really low?
Oh my God, yes.
Let's start there because people say, oh my God, I'm not making enough milk. So instead of saying like, well, what kind of supplements have you tried? What makes you think your milk supply is low?
Yes, that's what I say too. Why do we think that?
Yeah. And so then usually people are like, well, I don't know. My baby's fussy. My breast doesn't feel very full. The
doctor told me.
Yeah, the doctor said I wasn't making enough milk because my baby's not gaining enough weight. There's all kinds of reasons why people think they're not making enough milk.
Right.
And it's very rarely the case that you're not making enough milk.
And usually, from what I've seen, yes, it is pretty rare. And from what I have ever seen, being a lactation consultant, seeing a million zillion women, but you can always kind of see if a mother truly, truly, truly has low milk supply. You can usually back that up to, okay, there's a hormonal issue, there's a medical issue, there was breast surgery, there's, insufficient glandular tissue, there's something that caused the problem for the supply to be low. And we can usually identify what that problem is and go from there. But women don't just wake up one day without a milk supply when they had a fine milk supply the day before. Like, that does not happen. You don't just randomly lose your milk supply. There has to be a reason why. And if moms call me and they say, I think my milk supply is low, then, there's no like, oh, okay, then go and do this. Like, there's like, I don't know how many questions that we need to cover first. Is it what changed? Is the baby's pattern of feeding changed? Is the baby sleeping through the night now and you're missing those feedings? Did you go back to work? Did you get your period? Did you start on a medication or a birth control? Like, there's so many things that can add to that if that is truly the problem. And I tell you, if that's the problem, if you started a birth control and that caused your milk supply to go down, all the fenugreek in the world isn't going to help that. I'm sorry.
It's just a hormonal thing.
Right. So and if you don't know that that's what's going on and you just start taking these supplements because you think that that's what's going to do it for you, like that it's not, and you're going to be disappointed and we're not going to be able to solve the real problem of what's going on. Mm-hmm. Or maybe there's no milk supply problem at all. And maybe it's a problem with the baby getting the milk, or maybe it's a problem with, sometimes you hear that if moms are pumping and they feel like they're not pumping enough.
Yes.
So they say, it must be a milk supply problem. Then we go through that pumping education piece, that's a big deal. Or is it a problem with, is the baby really gaining? I've had this happen too, where the baby is actually gaining fine, but the pediatrician thinks it should be more than what it is.
Yeah.
But it actually is fine. In fact, I had that yesterday. The mother was like, the pediatrician doesn't think the baby's gaining well. And she really is doing fine. And she's super long. And she laid her down. The baby's 3 months old. She laid the baby down to change her diaper, and the baby's kicking all over the place. I'm like, this is not a baby that's like lethargic in any way, shape, or and she was completely alert, and she was just like, all over the place. I'm like, this baby's fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with this baby. She was definitely gaining on the lower end, but it was nothing to like, oh my gosh,
and
your
that's
milk
just
supply
what
is low.
Some babies do.
Exactly. That's the way they are made up, and it's fine. But if a mom
hears
that,
it's like the woman who eats a piece of cake 3 meals a day, and she's like 100 pounds. Mm-hmm. And then there's me when I like walk by a piece of cake,
right?
And there's like suddenly 5 pounds on my thighs.
But there are as well, like, and if you don't, if our little listeners out there don't realize this, there are different growth charts for exclusively breastfed babies and exclusively formula-fed babies. So
that's true, and they're not, and that oftentimes in the doctor's office they don't even know that they don't use this breastfed baby.
Right. So they might be comparing your breastfed baby to a formula-fed baby growth chart, which is going to look like they're gaining on the lower end. So there really is a lot more to it than just going, I don't have enough milk. The other thing that I see a lot, especially in the very newborn stages, because like a lot of the stuff we've just been talking about has more like, okay, at 3 months, 3 months, like stuff like that. But like in the very newborn stages, a lot of times moms don't realize like what normal newborn behavior looks like. And they think, and of course they read online and they hear from their family members, the baby's must be hungry. They probably didn't get enough to eat because they're crying. Your baby's crying. They must not get enough to eat. Your baby's sucking on her finger right now. They must not be getting enough to eat. And that really sets in and really impacts our new mothers a lot.
Yeah, there is just this basic, I would venture to guess that it's cultural.
Oh yeah.
That there is just this automatic, like we have just developed this reflex to doubt how much milk our body makes. Because, there is no such thing as a pregnant woman except for maybe one who's like lost a baby or gone through trauma like that. You don't generally walk around going, I don't think my body is growing my baby correctly. I don't know if the placenta is passing enough nutrients to my the umbilical cord. You just don't. Your baby just grows. You eat a lot of food. You get fatter. You're like, your legs hurt. Like, you're not paralyzed by fear your entire pregnancy that your baby's not growing properly in your belly. You generally aren't.
Right. And you're even told that by doctors and stuff. Like, I've met women that could hold down nothing but Fritos for the first 3 months of their pregnancy. And doctors are like, it's fine. The baby's getting what they need. They're growing fine.
Yeah, right. It's just kind of automatic to like, don't worry about it.
Yeah, but if you get a breastfeeding mother that's only eating Fritos, the country will freak out.
Oh, yes. Oh, well, there's no possible way that you could possibly getting enough nutrients. Your body can't make milk. If you don't drink enough water, you're not going to make enough milk. Yeah, suddenly, as soon as you have that baby, all of this body stuff comes into play. That your body is not good enough, and your milk's not good enough, and you're not making enough of the milk. And, I don't know. We can spend all day trying to figure out where that comes from, but it's really mostly fear.
It is, yeah.
There's usually it's not based on anything like actual.
No evidence.
Anything that's happening.
No, it's not. So then we instead of turning to, okay, maybe I should call a lactation consultant because I'm really feeling like I need some some security and a cheerleader to tell me like, this is all okay. Yeah. Or really, maybe we need to look and see, is there truly a milk supply issue and what is it so that we can fix it?
Yeah.
But instead we go to whatever social media we're comfortable on, and people tell you, oh, take this supplement, eat this cookie, buy this tea, or, because it really helped me a lot. So it'll help you too. But it can be dangerous. And we'll talk about why it's dangerous, and we'll talk about why it's safe.
Yeah. And what's the magic pill?
Right.
That's what it's like. That's definitely a cultural thing too. Something's going on. What kind of pill can help? And this is, there's like advertising all over the place that we can, blame for that.
Yeah.
There's always just some solution when, really, and a lot, it's like, even if, no matter what goes on with the supplements at all, if you are not, if you're breastfeeding on a schedule or your baby's got like a latch issue or something, like you said, supplements are not going to help that.
No.
You have to be breastfeeding on demand. Basically, you have to be breastfeeding on demand, or you are possibly going to have issues. You can't just not follow all of the rules of nature.
Right.
You can't bypass that and then take a supplement.
Right. And that's what I try to tell people, like when I'm doing prenatal breastfeeding classes and stuff. Because they always say, well, what about this? Or what about that? Or beer. I heard, my friend told me that beer really works. And I'm like, you know what? Like, it's all about supply and demand. Mm-hmm. It really is. It's all about stimulating the hormones that make the milk, and that's not going to happen unless the baby tells your body that they need the milk. So you could take all the fenugreek in the world, or you could take all the other supplements that are out there, or drink all the tea in the world. But if you're just doing that and sitting on your couch and not breastfeeding your baby, you're not going to just like make a ton of milk. Like it all has to do with the stimulation. It really does. Like and some moms say, oh, I used all those things and I swear it worked for me. Like, okay, that's great. But did you also change something in your feeding pattern, or increase your feeds, or, start feeding more on demand, or increase your pumping, or add a pumping in, or maybe you didn't have a milk supply problem to begin with, and that just made you feel more secure.
Exactly. A lot of times I think it's probably just the way we're thinking about it.
Right. Right. So,
and have a beer, by all means.
Right. I'm always like,
beer.
Maybe that'll relax
Sit
you
down,
enough.
Have a beer and chill out and breastfeed your baby.
Right. It's fine. It's fine. But it's, the bottom line is that if you truly feel like you do have a milk supply issue, then we should really investigate that and dig through it and see what is a problem, if anything. And if there's not a problem, we need to, that'll make you feel better too, to see if that's a problem.
Yeah. You need to fix the problem before you go to supplement.
Right. So one of the reasons why the supplements are a little bit scary to me. Now, first of all, like the teas and stuff, like I don't think there's enough of anything in those teas to really make it that effective. I mean, you would have to drink like gallons of mother's milk tea, I think, like to make it like anything. Yeah. Some people legitimately like the taste of it and don't mind drinking it every day. I'm like, then you're not hurting anything. That's fine. Because I don't think there's really that much of anything in tea, really. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty small. If you're taking pill forms of, we'll say fenugreek, because that's the one that's most popular. If you're taking a pill form of that can impact other legitimate health issues that people have. So fenugreek has been known to interfere with the absorption of thyroid medication. And I have had this happen where moms took it not knowing that. It interfered with the absorption of their thyroid medication, which caused their problems with their thyroid levels, which caused legitimate milk supply issues. That's a bad thing. Like, we don't want that to happen, because then we got to fix that too on top of it. Mm-hmm. It can interfere with other vitamins and nutrients being absorbed into your system. It can also interfere with blood sugar. So, like, there's a lot of stuff there. And if somebody doesn't know your health history, or you don't know that this innocent pill can do these things, that could cause a lot of other problems, as well as not increase your milk supply. And the other thing with it too is like there's not a whole lot of strong research behind it. The strongest research behind fenugreek is with the very initial days of breastfeeding, not anything else. And it really is there's so much inconclusive evidence behind it that it's hard to get behind it as a professional to be like, okay, yeah, I think you should take this medication. It's not even a medication. But plus, I mean, herbals, we all know, they're not regulated. They're not, the dosage could be off. It's just, it's not as secure as we want to think it is.
Right.
So, you have to be careful with that stuff. The lactation cookies, the other thing that I want people to keep in mind.
Wouldn't it be great if you could just eat some cookies?
Oh my God.
It'd be fine.
We'd be such a happy society, I tell you. But the one thing that I want moms to remember is, let's think about this logically. And your milk is impacted by hormones, right? We know that. And it's your prolactin levels. Your prolactin levels are high. That means your milk is, your body's making milk, and all that stuff that's happening. Oxytocin helps your milk to let down. The prolactin keeps your milk higher. That's why those overnight feeds, because your prolactin is higher overnight. So those night feeds, if those get dropped and we notice a drop in supply, we just pop those back in again, or get up and pump during the night or something to let your body know, okay, we need to keep this prolactin level higher. We know food does not impact our hormones when we're breastfeeding like that. That doesn't have any impact on it. So I don't know how that ever where that message got relayed, that if you eat oats or if you eat, certain foods, that is going to make your supply go up, because your supply is not made by what kind of food you're eating. It's all hormonally driven and driven by the baby. So that's why there are actual medication, prescribed medications out there that will increase your prolactin levels, which will increase your milk supply. But that's a whole different story.
Yeah.
But it's frustrating, because you want to be able to do this easy thing and be like, okay, I'm just going to take this pill or take this supplement, and it worked for my friend, so it'll work for me. But it's just not always that simple.
No, it's not at all that simple.
Yeah.
And, I'm one of those people I look to supplements sometimes. I'm like, I don't know. I feel like I don't know. I can't even think of an example right now. But I'll be like, I'm going to try this herbal thing. And, I think that they could be, a nice supplement, as they're called.
Right.
For things that are already happening well.
Right. When people take it for energy, or my hairdresser, oh my God, she's freaking hilarious. But she's very, very high energy, and she's very active, and, in the gym every day or whatever. And she loves those, the supplemental, things you add to your water to give you a boost of energy during the day, and, additional vitamins or whatever it is. And, and she swears that it works for her. And I don't know, nothing makes me more energetic, but it just, some people, it's kind of what they do to kind of keep themselves going or whatever, or the protein shakes and stuff like that. Just like you said, supplement to add to what they're already doing, not to replace anything.
Right. Yeah, you can't just be like, I'm going to have this energy drink, and I'm also never going to sleep.
Right.
I'm going to eat just McDonald's and coffee, and then take an energy drink, and then this will help me with my energy level. Well,
your body's going to crash. It's not going to.
Yeah, it's not going to work. It's not going to work out there.
No, it will not. So, and that's kind of how it is with, like we said, if you're taking fenugreek and you really believe in that, that's fine. We're not bashing it, but make sure that you are also breastfeeding frequently, pumping if you need to, and seeing somebody, a lactation consultant, to make sure everything is safe and there is no true problem that we need to fix before things get better. And that's really where it comes down to. We want to make sure that there is no breastfeeding problem that is getting in the way and causing your supply to dip.
Yeah, that's the bottom line. You have to fix that, or the supplements aren't going to do anything.
Right. And, sometimes, and it drives me crazy sometimes. I will have moms that come to me and say that their provider, maybe their OB or their pediatrician or the nurse in the doctor's office or whatever, suggested that they take it. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, but it's not evidence-based. Like, I have a hard time with that, like, that's kind of something that you hear around. It's not something that you would think to get from, your doctors will never tell you to take an herbal for anything else.
Right. Well, so here, I think I say this probably every single episode, but lactation is not a part of medical curriculum.
No.
Your doctor, your MD, has not been trained in lactation. This is a fact. If you need me to prove it to you, then send me an email, because I will.
You can ask any doctor; they'll tell you.
Ask any doctor; they will tell you. I mean, there's plenty of doctors that I've spoken to, like kind of breastfeeding advocates who have like gone on to become IBCLCs. Mm-hmm. They've confirmed. They all say this. They don't get lactation. Now, when you go to see a doctor, and they're giving you all this lactation information, unless they've gone through the extra training, which most of them have not. They're going off of opinion, cultural norms, mm-hmm. and think not actual lactation information, because they don't have it. Now, they have all kinds of other things that are useful, but this particular thing it's just not their thing. If you're having like lactation questions and issues, you need to see a lactation consultant. And you can say that to your pediatrician too. You can, if they say, "Well, you're not making enough milk," and say, "Okay, I will get in touch with lactation." They should be telling you this. They should say, "You're going to want to reach out to a lactation consultant to help you with this," just like they would if you came in and said, "I think I have cancer," or "I think I have, I don't know, I need a colonoscopy.
My arm's broken." Anything.
Yeah, right. They're going to send you to the people who specialize in this. Now, very rarely do they ever bring up lactation consultants, but they should.
Yeah, they don't do it very often. And I think a lot of it depends on where you are. Like here where I am, there's a few doctor's offices that will openly say, "Okay, I think it's a good time to talk to a lactation consultant," or whatever. But that's because maybe they know one in the area that's practicing.
That, yeah.
But if you are in an area where maybe there's not a whole lot of private practice LCs, or maybe there's not a whole lot of, support, they may never say to you, "You should get in touch with somebody who might know a little bit better about this." It just might not. And that's,
right.
And obviously the information is out there, but it would be nice if you didn't have to go look at, if somebody said to you, "Hey, your doctor said, hey, why don't you talk to a lactation consultant, because I think this might be out of my realm." There's a lot going on here,
right.
Like there's a lot to it. And I had a mom in my office this morning who actually I saw quite a bit when her baby was smaller, and she's a couple months now, but she said a doctor said to her the other day, it wasn't a pediatrician, I think it might have been a radiologist, said, "Well, if you have to stop breastfeeding, you've done good. You've done a couple months, and that's better than a lot of other people get to do." And And it's like, I know that people they think that softens the blow.
Yeah,
but it really doesn't.
That makes it much worse.
It makes it worse. Yeah, it makes it worse
because people want to breastfeed,
right?
And people will breastfeed with the right information and the right supports.
It's important.
And really, when you say, like, "Oh, it's okay if you just quit, it's fine," that's not helpful.
Or people, grow up on formula all the time and there's nothing wrong with them. And that's not the point. The point is this is what the mom wanted to do.
Right.
It's just, so frustrating. So definitely, like, if you have, we cannot stress this enough, if you think there is a milk supply problem, get a hold of somebody, or get a hold of me. We can do a consult, email Abby. We'll ask you questions, whatever, because there have been times where we've gotten emails from people that said, "I think there's a milk supply issue." And once we start going through things, we realize, okay, there's not.
There's no issue at all.
Yeah.
There's not a milk supply issue. There's not even there was like a no issue.
Right.
It's just somebody, you don't have this. We don't have, we don't have the breastfeeding around us all the time for us to kind of see how it works, to see what looks normal, to see all this. We don't see breastfeeding. And that's like 95% of where the issue comes from.
Right.
Is that we're just not around it. And you don't know what you're looking for.
You don't. You don't know what
You
the
have no
signs
idea.
are.
It's so
and
confusing.
What the problems could be.
I got an email from a woman yesterday or today, and she was like, I don't know, what's going on. My baby keeps sticking his tongue out, like he's hungry. My mother told me that he's hungry when he does that, but I try to breastfeed him and he won't. And then he was like eating his thumb, and they said that meant he was hungry, but then I tried to breastfeed him and he wouldn't. And I'm like,
listen to your instinct. He's not hungry.
Yes, and I feel like she knows, and she does. She knows.
Mm-hmm.
She knows on some level, because she wouldn't have written the confusing email, the I'm confused email, of like the baby's breastfeeding when the baby wants to breastfeed, and like they play with their tongues and their hands. Mm-hmm. What a novelty for a baby to realize they have a hand.
I know.
Like, oh my God, that's like the coolest thing ever. They can't stop playing with their hand or their tongue. Can you imagine like when you like what it's like to first realize you have a tongue?
Oh my gosh. They just do it. And then I tell moms too all the time, like if you have ultrasound pictures of your baby with their hands at their face while they're in the womb, that is not going to be a feeding cue for you. Like that's what they do. Right. They keep their hands there sometimes. It's their comfort level. They've had them in the womb, and that's it. Like that's where they like their hands to be.
Right.
Nobody knows your baby better than you. So if your mother-in-law or mother or friend or whoever, employer, God only knows who, says to you, "Oh, your baby's crying. They must still be hungry." Like that does not necessarily mean anything.
Oh yeah, and then she also said that she went to the pediatrician and she was talking to the pediatrician about it. Oh, and she was like rubbing the baby's gums. And she felt like there was like teething issues going on. But then she went to the pediatrician, and the pediatrician said that there's never been a baby that's teethed that early.
How old is the baby?
3 months.
Oh my gosh, come on!
Babies are born with teeth.
Right.
Sometimes.
I had a mom,
and by the way,
baby who had teeth by like 4 months.
Yeah, and just because they're not popping out of the gums doesn't mean they're not moving around and causing discomfort and pain.
They teeth for months, yeah.
Like she kind of felt like maybe there was some pain in his mouth and his gums. Like if that's what she's like thinking, just like coming up in her gut, that's probably what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. We definitely don't want any mamas to feel like, oh my gosh, I've got a milk supply problem. I have to take all these supplements. I have to do all these things. It's, it could be not very safe for your baby or for you. And the other thing too with supplemental things, like I did have a mom once that had me look up all these ingredients for a protein shake or something that she wanted to take. And a lot of the ingredients that were in there, they were natural. It was like seaweed and like all this other different stuff. But in certain levels, they're toxic for babies. I mean, babies don't metabolize like we do. They're little. Their bodies don't work like ours do. So we don't know at what level the toxicity becomes dangerous either. Mm-hmm. So it's just like, you're kind of taking your chance with that.
That's right. And it's not, and if there is a milk supply problem, it's not going to help.
No.
Like it can't, these things are called supplements because they can help support the healthy things that are going on in your body. They can possibly. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, you have to, if you do have a milk supply problem, then you have to deal with the milk supply problem.
Right, or nothing's gonna fix. But women do not, all of a sudden, overnight, lose their milk supply. They do not. That does not happen. And when people say to me, it was just gone. I just lost my supply. I just dried up. Like, you don't just dry up. Like, it just doesn't happen like that.
Yeah, and I think I say this every podcast episode too, but there were women in concentration camps who had full milk supplies for their baby.
Yeah.
These women were not, they were not fed a lot of food, or we can assume that they were completely malnourished and dehydrated.
And they were still able to make
milk. And they were still making milk for their baby.
Your body's going to do what it needs to do, just like it does during pregnancy.
especially for your baby. I mean, like, it's just going to take care of your baby. It's wired to do that.
Yeah. So you don't just all of a sudden like not have any milk. And it can be like there are times where your body just kind of like acclimates to supply, usually right around that 3-month mark or so. And women feel like they're not as full. And that's, you know, then they go, oh my gosh, I don't feel as full. Something happened to my supply. But no, your body's just adapting to everything.
My boob is floppy.
Yeah.
Why is my boob floppy?
It feels empty and squishy.
Yeah. It doesn't feel full anymore. Yeah, that's a good thing.
I know. You don't want to walk around all full and leaky for however long you breastfeed for. That's craziness.
Right.
So it should be, you know. But we also, a lot of women don't make it that far. So they don't know that this is normal. This is a normal transition.
Right. And they're not watching people around them go through it.
No.
They're not like seeing their sisters and their aunts and all people on the street like breastfeeding, the ones with the small babies having these big huge plump boobs, and then the ones breastfeeding older babies having kind of normal floppy boobs.
Right. And it just, you know, it doesn't have anything to do with it. Everybody's good. Boobs are good all the way around. It's fine. Everybody's boobs will pass. It just does.
Yeah.
But if you have any questions on milk supply or how supplements impact milk supply or whatever, like, we might have got off on a couple tangents here, but it wouldn't really be our podcast if we didn't, I don't think.
Right.
You know, it's kind of how it is. But it really, like, definitely let us know. If you are on the even if it's something that you were like, seriously, one of those things where you go, I took this when I was, you know, before I had my baby, I'd like to take it again. Do you think it's safe? Like, if you're unsure at all, let us know.
Yeah.
And we'll figure it out for you. But if you are taking something hoping that it's going to increase your milk supply, definitely talk to us about that. Or talk to somebody who knows, another lactation consultant or whatever, because you need to figure out if there's really a problem or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
And that's my spiel.
Cool.
And
Bye.
Bye.
Sorry, go ahead. No, we tell them what's going on next week.
Oh, next week.
It's
Abby's in a hurry. Yeah. So next week we're going to talk about becoming an IBCLC.
Because y'all want to.
I know y'all want to.
Breastfeeding advocate.
I know. So we're going to talk about that next week, so stay tuned.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Today's episode is brought to you by Spandice, ice and heat therapy in an adjustable supportive wrap. Ice therapy is perfect for C-section recovery, back pain, and other childbirth recovery ailments. Today you can use promo code BADASS for 20% off your purchase plus free shipping. Check them out at spandice.com/badass. That is SPAND-ICE.com/badass. And you can find the URL in the description of this podcast episode.